they traded him for a third-round pick to go to Dallas. So Cincinnati's owner is cheap. Pittsburgh will pay their stars. They paid Big Ben. They paid a Hines Ward, Harrison, T.J. Watt. Pittsburgh's not cheap, but I was sitting there this morning thinking about Major League Baseball standings where, all your league leaders have a lot of money. I think in the NFL, and I've talked to a couple friends, you think everybody's got the same money. The Rams, who have maybe the richest owner in the sport, Stan Kroenke, the Rooneys are the second poorest owners in the sport. And the Rams have become the model of the league with the Chiefs, and the Steelers feel outdated. They're literally opposite franchises. We put this on the screen. The Rams and the Steelers are polar opposites. The Rams have a young offensive coach, Steelers, old defensive coach. The Rams have an elite veteran quarterback. The Steelers have mediocre young quarterbacks. Rams spend their money on offense, Steelers on defense. One has no interest in head cases. They don't draft them. They take them off their board. The Steelers draft and try to develop dysfunction before moving off them. The Rams have 8 playoff wins in 8 years. The Steelers have none. So the Steelers, in my opinion, don't spend their money wisely. That said, they have taken care of a Minkah Fitzpatrick, a T.J. Watt. They've taken care. They just spend too much money on defense, not enough on offense. They're tone deaf. But another reality is the Rams now are going, and everybody goes, well, and the Steelers, they never have a losing record. What are your standards? I'm sorry. The Rams are now, they've got plans for a $10 billion headquarters. They're going to make Woodland Hills Beverly Hills. It is unbelievable the plans the Rams have. The Steelers, the Rooneys, they don't have that money. So where do you think free agents want to go? So Pittsburgh doesn't even have the best stadium in its hometown. PNC Park, where the baseball Pirates play, is the gem. So this is the difference where you think all these NFL owners, the Rams are building something that will be so far ahead of the league because they have a rich owner. And they can pay, like again, the Steelers paid Tomlin $15 million, $16 million bucks. I don't think the Steelers are cheap. I think Cincinnati's cheap. I think the Raiders, until they got some money infused into the organization about 3 years ago, they were cheap. But I think the reality of what Pittsburgh has become is there is a gap in this league. Not just in quarterbacks and coaches. There is a gap financially in this league, and Pittsburgh's staring at it. Is that, in the offseason, when you got to write those checks, you got to have money in the bank, and the Rooneys are old school owners. And by the way, the city, Pirates are an embarrassment. Penguins haven't made the playoffs in several years. The Steelers, no playoff wins in 8 years. I don't think it's all ownership. The fans love the teams. I don't think there's a lot of money.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I don't think it's ever really all this cut and dry. Because there's so many different ways to slice this. I mean, I actually lived in Pittsburgh for years. It's a beautiful city, great city. It could be a cloudy and rainy city, but beautiful city, especially when the weather is nice. And yeah, people absolutely love their sports there. They love the Steelers. I said this before, I was there when they won their last Super Bowl. And it was the place to be for sure. But I do think, and this is where, me and Colin are very much aligned, is that they're dated in their philosophy in terms of how to build a team and how to win games. And it's okay if it worked. And I'm going to show you the other graphic in a second too. With a defensive head coach compared to an offensive head coach. Mediocre young quarterbacks, elite veteran quarterbacks, spend on defense, spend on offense, draft dysfunction, don't draft head cases, 0 playoff wins in 8 years, 8 playoff wins in 8 years. I'm not going to magically make the Rams out to be this most unstoppable, great franchise. I think they are an awesome franchise, and I do think that they're this great franchise. But to use them as this like magical gold standard, in terms of like what every NFL team should do, not so much. And the reality is to me, it's either, if you're going to go all in on defensive spending and all in on defense, well, then it needs to show up in the games. So look, they're consistently the bottom of the league in offensive spending. And here they are first in defensive spending. And if that's the case, then your defense needs to be so special, so elite, that when you're in the playoffs playing the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson, you better hold them to 10 points like we saw the Kansas City Chiefs do. You better have an amazing moment in the game where you get after the quarterback to essentially win the game against the Buffalo Bills like Spags had dialed up with the Kansas City Chiefs. You better have a game like the Philadelphia Eagles had in the Super Bowl where they absolutely dominated the Kansas City Chiefs defensively and held them essentially to 0 points, with 4 minutes left in the third quarter. Like, those are the games. If you're going to be first, like, those are the moments that you need. Or the Philadelphia Eagles against the Los Angeles Rams, getting after that elite quarterback of Matthew Stafford, forcing multiple fumbles, huge sacks that ultimately led them to get to the NFC Championship game. And then that same Eagles team forcing, I forget at this point now, 3 or 4 turnovers against the Washington Commanders that had devastating consequences. And you don't see the Steelers do that. So I would have no problem with the way they run their team if they had the success, if they had those moments. But they're not having the success. They're not building that team that is good enough. And I definitely agree where it's just like, I don't care about never having a losing season. That doesn't mean anything to me. I've been so consistent on this. For me, it's always, are you getting to AFC championship games or NFC championship games? That to me is my floor for what teams should be going for. You're obviously not going to be able to get to a conference championship game every single year, but that is my floor of like, that is what, if you can at least get there, even if you lose, it's at the end of the day, to me, it's a successful season. You made it top 2 in the conference, top 4 in the NFL. You had a chance. You were a game away from getting to the Super Bowl. Obviously, if you actually get to the Super Bowl, even better, but you're right there. And conference championships matter. That's why they still have confetti and trophies, and you can see the players. The players are insanely excited. They're not faking it. Even Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, who had won a bunch of Super Bowls, even when they win, the conference, like, they're still very much excited. They're celebrating. Like, it is still a wildly real accomplishment for these guys. You get a ring and everything, a banner, you get it. And so it's like, unless you're actually competing for those, I'm kind of like, what are you doing? That's the lens that I look at, which is why I always rip the Dallas Cowboys. I'm like, you haven't even been to an NFC Championship game in 30 years, and you want to tell me how great your team is? That's nonsense to me. That really is. That's truly nonsense to me. So that's why I look at the Steelers team, and it's become so jarring for me, because when I first moved to Pittsburgh, essentially Pittsburgh was at the top. They were pretty much at their peak with the whole Mike Tomlin and Ben Roethlisberger, type of connection. That iteration of that team, like I was there for their peak, for when all of this was going down, when they were just like at the top of the top of the top. And it just has been so far from that. But you kind of get tricked into it to being like, well, they never had a losing record. They're going to the playoffs. But then, like, they have moments where it's like they have an embarrassing game against the Cleveland Browns with Baker Mayfield. I still remember that game so vividly. They've just had too many weird, goofy moments, especially in the playoffs. And it's just like, you're like, oh, well, we had Mason Rudolph against the Buffalo Bills. And it's like, yeah, why? Why was that the thing that you had set up for your team? And then this year it was like, or this past last season, it was just like, I was pretty high on them, and then it just completely fell apart. And look at what even the Buffalo Bills were able to do defensively against the Baltimore Ravens. It looked better, honestly. It looked better. Even though the points were kind of comparable, like it felt like they had a way to disrupt what the Baltimore Ravens wanted to do. Whereas the Baltimore Ravens really were just like, we're going to win this game. We're just going to keep running it. You literally can't stop us. We don't care about blowing you out. We don't care about hanging 42 points. Like we're just going to win. And you really can't stop us. We're just going to hold on to the ball. We're going to run. And it was just like nothing the Steelers could do. And not once did I watch that game and have the feeling of like, oh yeah, the Steelers can win this game. Not once. That's a bad feeling to have. That's a bad feeling to go and watch your team and be like, we can't win this game. And it's only the wild card round. That's a bad feeling to feel whether you're in the Super Bowl, let alone in the wild card round. And so I do think there needs to be honest discussions about this Pittsburgh Steelers team, especially because when you're also, you're drafting so many defensive players, you're paying so much for defensive players. There should be such defensive momentum for the Steelers that year after year after year, this team should just be suffocating defense. It should just be like, oh, the Steelers defense is just going to be just unstoppable, right? Like people are still studying how the Steelers build their defense so they can copy and paste for their own franchises. But yet you don't feel that way. You look at the Kansas City Chiefs defense. You look at the Denver Broncos defense. You look at the Philadelphia Eagles defense. You look at the Chargers defense. You're looking at all these other defenses not named the Steelers. And if you're going to be such a defensive forward team, to me, that is indefensible. So we can talk about all the money that the Rams have and how they're building Beverly Hills or whatever Colin said. Like, that's fine and all. That's great and all. But, like, that's not just, can be part of the problem, I suppose. But, like, it's not the problem. There might be other problems that are specifically personnel that you have to look at more so than just the money to spend. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Pittsburgh Steelers? And, pretty much coming up short year after year. Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.